Welcome back to episode 39 of the Auld Triangle podcast. We're here as always to cover all the latest news in Irish mixed martial arts, and Andy Stevenson and Caoilte Barra are going to help me out in doing just that. Great to be here. Great to get the chance. And the biggest news that we want to talk about, and we'll start off today, we're kicking off with a bang on episode 39. Obviously, we have the news that Kiefer Crosbie has signed with the UFC, and it's great news as well. We're going to kind of talk to Kiefer almost immediately about that signing. We have Ciarán Clarke on a little bit later on as well, ahead of his Bellator fight. We're going to cover Virtus. We're going to cover Nathan Kelly's fight, Ian Garry's big win, of course, and a bunch of other stuff and fight announcements within Irish mixed martial arts. Well, as we said, we were over there. We were minding our own business on Friday evening, lads. Next thing, news fell on my lap on Instagram. Kiefer Crosbie announced that he had signed with the UFC, and we talked about it was a mad old couple of hours. We're trying to figure out who he's going to be fighting. He will take on Kevin Juice at the UFC 293 in Sydney in just 2 weeks' time, so not too long to wait for Big Daddy's UFC debut. And it's fantastic to see more and more, and all of these signings, lads, are coming, you know, not as a surprise, but the timing is a surprise. It's like we're going about our Friday, and next thing, kaboom, Kiefer drops it on his Instagram that he signed with UFC. And normally we get like a little bit of a maybe 1 month or 2 month run in where we get to look forward, but it was literally he announced the signing, and then just hours later, MMA Junkie reported the news that Kevin Juice from Sydney and fights out of City Kickboxing, I believe, is going to be his opponent at UFC 293. And the huge news coming for Big Daddy. Spoke with us, obviously, on the Auld Triangle a little while back in March. This was the hopes, this was the dreams, and he's made it happen. We'll get to see him in 2 weeks' time.
Absolutely. It's brilliant to see. As he mentioned to us before, he's wanted this for a long time. Obviously his last combat sports outing was in the squared circle in an influencer boxing bout. But look, with things like this, you need to be in the right place at the right time. You need to put in the work. You need to get the results, and then be in the right place at the right time and be ready. And he's done all that. So like, he went out there, he knocked out Alex Cowboy Oliveira, which is a massive feather in his cap from an MMA perspective. He went and took an influencer boxing bout, which, okay, fair enough, not MMA, but put a massive spotlight on him. And then, clearly, I imagine for both these lads, the UFC were probably looking for 2 welterweights, lashed them on the Sydney card, and he was ready. He was good to go, and he's gotten his opportunity. And I'm delighted for him, because he's a guy with, a small family, and it's brilliant. It's, it caught me a little bit by surprise. If you told me an Irish fighter had been signed, I probably would have guessed Paul Hughes. But you know what? You absolutely cannot fault Kiefer Crosbie. He's gone in, he's done it, and what more can you do other than be ready to go, and fair play to him. So I'm buzzing to see him in there, and hopefully we see him have some success in there in the UFC octagon.
Yeah, it's definitely great news. And coming in here, Caoilte, against Kevin Juice, obviously coming in with some judo background, and we've seen him kind of a couple of amateur fights as well there. He kind of knocked the guy out looking for a choke and stuff like that. Look, he's going to be a tricky customer for Kiefer coming over there. You're taking a fight on short notice. You're going over to a completely different part of the world as well. So lots of adjustments. Obviously, Kiefer's going through the motions, obviously, of finding out the news, getting himself prepared, traveling over to enemy territory, and taking on somewhat of a hometown fighter, a guy coming out of City Kickboxing. So, it's going to be all to do for Kiefer over there, but it's a good matchup for him. And what we do know about Kiefer, Caoilte, is that he's always going to come, he's always going to bring the heat, and he's always going to be in exciting fights. And I think that fits the bill for a lot of UFC fighters, and that's exactly why the UFC would have looked towards him to bring him in and get him matched up here quickly.
Exactly. They want the guys that are going to bring exciting fights. And the ones who want it, the ones who'll step in on 2 weeks' notice and be like, yeah, no worries, I'll fly to Sydney and fight some other lad on either side of the world in his backyard, or technically backyard, given he's training out of City Kickboxing. But it's a big opportunity. It's a tough enough fight now. I watched a bit of your man Kevin Juice. He's as you mentioned, high-level judoka from years back. And he competed on the French national team at one point, or maybe a couple of times as well. And then he also competed at middleweight. He's a rangy, lanky type of lad. Competed at middleweight over in, I think it was Hex Fight Series. He was a champ there, welterweight and middleweight. So
he's huge. He's like 6'3".
He's mad. Like he and that, like, you know, what's the height difference there? It'd be great. It'd be a bit mad, but you see Kiefer getting the inside and he could crack him, because I've seen your man Say gets a bit happy with the hands given he's a judoka, and if he leaves his chin wide open for a big overhand or anything like that, it could be night. But very exciting fight, and I like the matchmaking here for his first fight as well. Great opportunity.
It's at welterweight, so I don't think the weight cut will be too much of an issue for Kiefer going over there as well. So that's one thing that at least he's not. Obviously, you never know, he might have to cut a bit of weight, but it's not like he's going to be going down to lightweight where there will be an extreme weight cut for Kiefer Crosbie there. But we'll hear from Kiefer Crosbie, the man himself, about the signing and how it all took place and how he's dealing with the whole situation. So I'm going to send it over to myself to bring Kiefer Crosbie in to hear his thoughts on the signing. And now we welcome back to the Auld Triangle podcast. Kiefer Crosbie, Big Daddy, is in the UFC. He's signed up. He is getting ready for UFC 293. He's going to take on Kevin Jousset in the welterweight division. Kiefer, thanks so much. I know it must be a mad time for you right now. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. How are you feeling, man? You must be buzzing.
Thanks, boys. Yeah, no, it's been a mad week, yeah. I'm trying to just keep it nice and calm and just take on my stride and just do what I always do a week before the fight, you know what I mean? Just keep it calm and don't get caught up in all the lights and the text and all that type of stuff. But it's very overwhelming, and I'm very grateful, yeah, that it's finally landed on my lap, the old UFC contract that I've been dreaming of for years and years. So yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, like, you know, how did it happen? How did it kind of first come in? Like, you spoke with us obviously back in last March. This was the dream. It's been a lifetime of work for you to get to this moment right now. When did you first hear the news? How did it first kind of come about?
Yeah, well, the whole thing was I was supposed to be getting ready for the Contender Series, hypothetically in October. Do you know what I mean? That was the whole thing. But so I had that in my mind that I was training for that. Do you know what I mean? I was like, October, they're still matching. That's what I was getting told. They're still matching. You're not matched yet. You're on the list. You know, they're really interested in you. I was on the radar for a long time. And last week, the UFC reached out and said, "Hey, can you send on your passport info and have you got a criminal record?" All this type of stuff. And I was like, "Oh shit!" So they're asking questions. That's good. And then my manager was like, "That's a great sign. When they start asking these type of things, that means they're getting the wheels in motion." And then I was just chilling late that night, and it was 10:30, 11 o'clock. My manager just started ringing me. He never rings me that late, so I was like, lovely, you know what I mean? Contender Series, it's done. So he answered the phone, and he's like, "What's up?" He goes, "Look, have a bit of bad news, but I got some good news as well." And I goes, "Right, go on." And he's like, "Bad news is they're not interested in you for the Contender Series, but the good news is welcome to the UFC. 4-fight deal. How'd you feel?" And I was like, "What the fuck?" But then he like immediately, second sentence was, "By the way, I'm fighting in 2 weeks in Sydney, Australia." And I was like, "Yeah, wait, what?" And I was like, "Fucking right, let's go. Yeah, I don't give a fuck if it's tomorrow. Let's do it. I'll jump in, no problem." Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a mad old week, a mad old phone call, and yeah, I'm very, very grateful. Yeah, I'm very grateful. Yeah, very grateful.
There was a great picture that you put up on Instagram, Kiefer, of you just kind of with the head down over the UFC contract with the pen in the hand. You're either just about to sign it or just had signed it. I just looked at it and I was like, that it was a great picture. What was going through your mind right at that moment?
Just, you know what, like, I don't get mad emotional about things at all. I didn't even get emotional, you know what I mean? Like, I always wondered what it'd be like getting that call, do you know what I mean, or whatever, but no emotion hit me at all. It wasn't like, oh, I'm bleeding, start crying around. I was like, wow, and then it was like kind of surreal. I was like, fuck, do you know what I mean? And then it was more so like the whole Australia, do you know what I mean, thing. I was like, wow, what a big card, what a big opportunity. More so, I was overwhelmed by that. I was like, wow, that's big. But it was just like, man, this is a lifetime of work type of thing. Do you know what I mean? This is not like a fucking, I didn't just get handed this in a week. You know what I mean? This took a long time for me to get to this. You know what I mean? And I have had so many hard fights and so many ups and downs and ins and outs and injuries and fucking so much shite, you know what I mean, that you just don't even realise, like, that goes on outside of the cage and outside of the gym, and every issue you could fucking think of going through. Do you know what I mean? And just to get that finally, it's like, wow, like, can't even explain it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I can't even explain it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like when I was looking at it, I was just looking at them 3 letters, and I was just like, fuck, you know what I mean? I can't wait to put them fucking gloves on and just go in there and fight. Like, it feels just so right. It feels like this is right. This is exactly how it's supposed to go. Do you know what I mean? And I was just taking it in. Yeah, I just kept looking at the letters and just looking at Ultimate Fighting Championships and Kiefer Crosbie and Dana's name beside my name, and I was just like, wow, this is nuts. His signature has to be here, mine's here. I was like, this is fucking. I literally went to bed that night and I woke up at about like 5 in the morning and I was like, what? And I picked my phone up and I was like, fuck, that wasn't a dream, yeah? I had to check my phone, make sure that definitely, like, I definitely got into the UFC here. Do you know what I mean? I almost felt surreal, but yeah, I'm buzzing, yeah, I'm buzzing.
That's classic. I mean, we were both. Sorry,
Funny.
guys, go ahead. No, go ahead.
You're currently out in Canada at the moment, training away. What's it like out there, and what's the plan? When are you heading off to Sydney then?
Yeah, we're going to Sydney on Tuesday, so in 2 days. Yeah, so Connor flew me out here, last bit of training. The teammates that I mainly train with, Lee and Kane, as you know, they're my boys, so they're here also. And I just wanted to get some good training with them before they're coming over with me to Australia. So I said, you know, I'll link up with these for a couple of days, just get their fucking blinkers on now, no distractions, no nothing, just literally. I'm in a hotel room now. I wake up, I train hard, I come back, I get a massage, I go to sleep, I wake up, I train hard, I eat, and I go back and I rest. And I'm going to do that until the fight. So there's nothing. There's no Paw Patrol on in the background. There's no kids hanging out with me. There's no fucking, there's nothing. I'm doing nothing but just literally focusing on this task at hand and just coming over to train with Connor and being around him. And he was so happy that I got the call, do you know what I mean? And just listening to his advice and listening to what he's telling me and just gave me some serious advice. He always does give me advice over the years, but this was different this time. Do you know what I mean? It's like I finally got here, and he understands the shit I've been through and the hard work I've put in. And this is such a rough game, and this is such a difficult life to choose to be a full-time professional MMA fighter. Do you know what I mean? So when you finally get here, he's seeing all the work I put in. He was so happy and proud, and it just gave me a big lift and a big motivation and a big, you know, and even just looking at his success just makes me work even harder. Do you know what I mean? If I can get 1% of his success, I'll be fucking happy. Do you know what I'm saying? So now my foot is actually finally in the door, and I can actually make a run at this. Do you know what I mean? And do everything I can to be the best I can. So it's just good to be around these people and in this environment with great training and good mindsets. You know what I mean? And yeah, and then in a couple of days, then me and the boys flow over to Australia. Yeah.
As you mentioned, there's a big difference between kind of visualizing everything and building towards it for years and years to finally you get that call and you're like, right, I have to get on a flight to the other side of the world now in a couple of weeks and get in the UFC octagon. Was there anything specific that Conor said to kind of give you a bit of advice in preparation for specifically making your debut or entering the UFC?
Like, do you know what? We have the exact same mindset when it comes to things like this. Like, maybe I'm just nuts because everyone keeps like, oh, Australia. I don't care where it is in the planet. I don't care when it is, where it is. Put me on a plane, ship me out, and watch me go to war. And that's me. I don't give a fuck. I just don't care about that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? I'm programmed to do one thing, and that's train hard and go out there and win a fight. And that's what I do. So, yeah, okay, if it was in England or I was in, you know, Ireland or I was in, like, you know, Europe or something, yeah, great. But it's not. It's over the other side of the world, and I'm going to embrace that too and enjoy the trip and the journey and the experience. And it's part of the story. Do you know what I mean? And like a lot of people make that debut in the Apex, and a lot of people make that debut on the Contender Series, and then get in. And I'm on a big pay-per-view card with a lot of eyeballs. I'm the only Irish. I'm gonna blow up. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. So it's just enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? That's what you're saying to me. Like, smile, enjoy this, like embrace every bit of this. Do you know what I mean? This is literally what you've been thinking and speaking about. So literally take it all in. It's just a fight, and that's exactly what it is. It's a big organization and it's big fucking lights and cameras in the air, but it's a fight, and that never leaves my mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always know at the end of all interviews and all this shit and all the Instagram and shit, like, it's a fight, and that's what I do me work, and I'm the best when I come to that. You know what I mean? All the other stuff is just there. Do you know what I mean? It's just that it's nothing really. It's just blowing yourself up or whatever and trying to promote, but it's like, I know I can fight. Do you know what I mean? And in 2 weeks' time, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out there and fight me fucking heart out and get me hand raised. I'm 1-0 in the UFC. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's going to be mad, yeah.
Kiefer, just before we get to the fight, just before we get to the fight,
no, yeah,
it's kind of mad that, like, when we last spoke in SBG, it was after the Cowboy fight, right? And you'd gone out there, you'd had an absolute war with a guy who'd fought many, many times in the UFC, and you knocked him out. And that was kind of like, we were talking about how that's kind of like punching your ticket, like the tick box to say, right, well, there you go, you want to see it. But it's interesting that the call comes after you went and then had on an influencer boxing show. Do you feel that event though put a bit of extra spotlight on you to where, like, did you feel that had any
No, I think,
part
to be honest with you, no, it was just a timing thing, because the Contender Series was only starting in August and running through October. And the way I was told was, October you'll be probably fighting in the Contender Series. That's what they're trying to match you for. So it was great. So I have a bit of time to mess around. I could have had another MMA fight, but you know what I mean? I just said, like, if my spot is on the Contender Series, I may as well keep the body fresh and not do another hard, you know what I mean? And just I take this little opportunity and mix it up with the boxing yoke, and then stay fresh for the October slot. That was my mindset. So my mind was thinking I'll be on the Contender Series most likely in October, and that's what I've been training for then in the past few weeks. So when this call came in, then it just lined up perfect. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Have you had a chance to look at Kevin Juice yet? What kind of, or is it a thing where you don't really care? You're just focusing on your performance and what you bring in there into the octagon?
That was the last question I asked was, yeah, do I have an opponent? Like, I was just like, yeah, send the contract now. I'll fucking have a pen, quick, let's go. I want to get this out there. I was like, whatever. And then literally, like, all the questions I asked, the last question was, wait, do I have an opponent? And then Audie was laughing. He's like, yeah, you do. He's from, he actually said Australia. You're fighting a local lad. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be mad. Do you know what I mean? But it turns out he's French, New Zealand. He's not actually Australian. So, not that it makes a difference. I actually got excited because with the Cowboy thing, what I learned from that was I actually perform better under that pressure, to be honest. When I get booed and they're screaming, you're going to die, and it's I'm the villain, it's I kind of get that like feeling of like, right, you know what I mean? Let's go. This brings the dog out of me way more. But I actually think the crowd's going to be on my side. If you've seen my phone the past few days and the thousands of people that have been texting me, a lot of them are saying, I'm going to this fight, I'm Irish, I live in Sydney, and the amount of people that are going to this that are Irish. So I actually think it's going to be like green, white and orange, to be honest. And I have mates in Sydney, I have friends over there, do you know what I mean? So I don't know, it's going to be, maybe it's going to be my crowd.
Did you get any messages from that Irish L one who was giving you stick the last time?
No, I'm not that petty. I'm not that petty. Margaret, whatever her name was. What was her name? Remember that? You're not going to go anywhere, she says to me. Look at me now, Margaret, you little bitch.
Four fight deal for you, Kiefer. How, obviously, look at main attention is at UFC 293. Are you looking to try maybe get another one in before the year is out? Obviously,
absolutely.
UFC Dublin.
Come on, I'm not going to overlook on, do you know what I mean? I have a fight in 2 weeks, you know what I mean? So let's be real and think about that's the fucking focus here, do you know what I mean? I'm not overlooking this, but of course I want to fight again this year, do you know what I mean? And you know what I mean? With the rumours going around today, maybe it'll be in December. Do you know what I mean? Maybe, who knows? Hopefully, do you know what I mean? If that happens, hopefully, fucking, boy, you know me, boys, I'll fight every second week if the UFC give me that. You know what I mean? But again, look, in 2 weeks, that's me first one. That's all I'm thinking about right now. I'm not overlooking the event. So let me get through this man first, get me hand raised, and then the future will just take care of itself.
Kiefer, if anyone has been living under a rock for the last while and don't know you as a fighter, or maybe anyone who might be tuning in just to kind of get to know you better here from outside of Ireland, what can they expect to see from your style inside the octagon on 293?
Just like, you know, like look me up and have a look at me fights, you know what I mean? When's the last time I was ever in a boarding fight in my life? Never. And trust me, like, when I'm telling you I'm extra motivated to go in here and make an impression, trust me, I'm going out on my shield in this fight. Like, that's who I am, and I've never in my life had this feeling of just like, I will die in there if I have to, do you know what I mean? I'm telling you, that's the buzz I'm on now. And I have the techniques also to back it up, and I have the skills and all that, but it's a fight at the end of the day. And I'm a dog, and I'm gonna go to war, do you know what I mean? And that's it, and get me hand raised and just try to run through this man as best I can. He's a tough lad, he's very good, he comes from a good gym, judo black belt, good kickboxing, all that. But again, the better the opponent, the better I fight, and I believe that, I really do. Like, he's no cowboy, do you know what I'm saying? And the better the fight, like, look at Cowboy, you know what I mean? Talking about 22-fight veteran, an animal, a very, like, a solid individual, do you know what I mean? A solid lad.
He's gone on to win a couple of fights since he fought you as well.
He's still an animal.
He's a serious guy.
He had 2 knockouts before me and 2 knockouts after me or something. You know what I mean? He's still relevant, and then I'm the middleman there that knocked him out in 1 round. So, look, I just can't wait. I only said this to the boys this morning. One of the boys had a pair of UFC kind of sparring gloves, and I said I've never once put a pair of UFC gloves on my hands on purpose, because the first time I put that glove on is going to be when I'm trying it on to actually walk out and fight. Do you know what I mean? I never put them on. You know what I mean? I've always seen them in the gym and stuff, the ones people training in, but I've never actually put it on. So next week when I put them on officially, it's going to be like, you know what I mean? It's going to be something special. So I'm buzzing for that.
Kiefer, why did we not put it on? Is that because you didn't want to, you wanted it to be the real thing?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I want to earn it. I want to earn those UFC gloves on my fists. Do you know what I mean? I want to put them on, look at them. I want to be like I made it. Do you know what I mean? That was the whole thing. So yeah, I'm gonna just wait till next week, lace them up, strap them up, and it's gonna be something special.
Kiefer, I don't know if you've actually. It sounds like you have looked up the opponent, but I was watching a bit of him there, and like, he's obviously fighting in city or training out of city kickboxing now with Adesanya and the lad. So I'm sure he's becoming more kind of refined and more technical. But in his early fights, he definitely was susceptible to getting into a bit of a war. And so I'll ask you this: we talked before.
Bring your
interview we did
on.
Last time.
Bring your fucking on. I hope he gets into a war. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, he's striving a war. So it is what it is. Fighting is chaotic as it is, and who's more chaotic than me? Something when I stand in the middle. So I don't know. So whatever. I don't really care either. You know, I think he's good and all. I think all that, but at this moment, this whole thing is not about him at all in my head. It's just me going in there and performing and doing what I do. Do you know what I mean? And reacting the right way and being switched on and full focus for 15 minutes and doing everything in my power to make sure I get my hand raised. You know what I mean? So that's my mindset. It's not like I'm going to take him down and do this, or I'm going to try and knock him out this. I'm going to get my hand raised. That's my goal. That's my mission. That's my job. And whatever I have to do, that's what I'm going to have to do. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be a good one, boys.
You talked before about being a frontline soldier or a sniper, and in one of the fights, in the cowboy fight I think it was, you said you're going to go in and be a sniper, and then you turned into a frontline soldier. So which can we expect this time, or do you even know yet?
I'm going to be like John Rambo. That's what I'm going to be like. I'm going to walk in with a big huge Beretta and just let them go. I don't know. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to just do martial arts. I'm going to do martial arts. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I've been training my whole life to do. 23 years I'm doing martial arts. I started when I was 10 years of age. I'm doing this a long time. And I'm a martial artist at heart. I'm a martial artist. Do you know what I mean? True and true. And that's what I do. And I'm going to go over and just do my best to be the best martial artist I can be. And that's it. And then the rest will take care of itself. You know what I mean?
Thanks so much for taking the time, Kiefer. One more for me before we wrap up.
Yeah.
After the signing, after it was all said and done, you were driving in the car. You had Little Dirk All My Life on the radio blasting out. You just looked at the camera and smiled. I know it's a song I really love at the minute right now. It's like talking about people trying to drag somebody down, but you make it in the end. And I guess that's what the relationship that you have with that song as well. A guy that's representing Dublin, a guy that maybe wasn't supposed to make it, but now here he is on the big time, and it's a big opportunity for you to kind of represent Dublin and your area there as well.
Absolutely. I'm just a young fella from the northern city of Dublin that's 10 years, you know what I mean? And it's like I'm a fuck up that just never gave up, do you know what I mean? And if I can do this and get to this level, any young fella, anyone that thinks they can't do something, you can 100% do one. And it took me a minute to get here. It didn't take me 1 year or 2 years. It took a long time, do you know what I mean? Of hard work, perseverance, like a lot of ups, more downs than ups, being broke, losing friends, losing like family members, losing just mad shit in my life. And finally, like just getting that contract and like, I fucking knew I could get here. I fucking knew I could. I just knew I could, do you know what I mean? But all that being said, like, just because I got the contract means nothing. I have to go out here and win. I have to go out here and get the job done. So I'm very grateful I got the contract. I'm very grateful I'm now officially a UFC fighter, but at the same time, until I get my hand raised, I won't be satisfied, I won't be happy, so I have to go over and get this job done. And believe me, like, me focus is on the fight, you know what I mean? It's not on the that Instagram or the buzz or the messages. It's great, and I appreciate everyone, but I have a job to do, and my job is to go out there and fight and win, and again represent, of course, my country, you know, my area, everybody, and just doing my best. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's exactly what I'm going to do in 2 weeks. So let's go.
2 weeks it is, September 9th at UFC 293. Kiefer, I know it's been a mad period of time for you. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us today. We wish you the best. We're really excited to see you out there on the big show. That's what you said. You're on Israel Adesanya, one of the biggest stars in the UFC right now. He'll be headlining it. You can catch Kiefer Crosbie on the undercard. He will take on Kevin Jousset in the welterweight division. Kiefer, thank you so much for taking the time. We're really excited to see you in action there. All the best to you, sir, and hopefully we'll talk to you then after the fight as well.
Absolutely, and thanks very much, boys, for always pushing us and tagging us and fucking putting posts up, and all of that doesn't go unnoticed. You, as all the other media outlets in Ireland, you always have our backs and always drive us and push us and give us all the shouts you can, and I'm sure it all kind of bodes in together as to why our names are as big as they are. Do you know what I mean? So I really appreciate the work you do as well, and yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to talk to you boys, and just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. Sky's the limit, baby.
Appreciate it. Kiefer, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, boys. See you soon, right? Thank you.
All right, brilliant to hear from Kiefer. We really appreciate him taking the time to come and speak with us today. It was, probably a mad time for him, so we're gracious of his time and hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing him in action at UFC 293. Fucking lads, fantastic news. It's almost unbelievable with the turn of events over the last couple of months. Obviously, you know, we have obviously Ian and Connor that are there, the standouts in the UFC, but everyone like Shauna joining up and you know, Lee being on tough, and now we have Caolan and Rhys and Kiefer, and Jesus, it's unreal. Like, it's almost unbelievable.
Christmas.
Like, it's Christmas coming early for sure. Brilliant stuff. And talking about Ian Garry, I mean, you know, just as big a news as Kiefer's signing, Ian went out there and absolutely put on a clinic against Neil Magny in a fight that, to me, really put a line under his skill set and his ability and how I feel he will progress in the division, in the welterweight division in the UFC, because to do what he did to Neil Magny, and there'll be the naysayers, it's like he didn't get a finish, but fuck me, lads, you're going out there and getting a 30-26, 30-26 and a 30-24. I don't know if there's too much more that you can do. The fight could have been stopped a couple of times. It was absolutely fantastic performance, and to me, you know, it led me to say on the UFC on the breakdown show, I'd be astounded now, lads, at this stage if Ian Garry didn't become a UFC champion based off what we've seen so far. And it was kind of like, Caoilte, this performance was the performance that, you know, we needed to see. We kind of had an inkling. We would probably, us being more focused on Irish MMA and obviously having a bit more focus on Ian Garry's career as well, would have had those thoughts, but we got a little bit more confirmation when he went in there and absolutely dominated Neil Magny.
100%. I thought it was probably his best performance today overall, especially given the level of an opponent. And at moments, it felt like it was like a lion playing with his prey, because he was just picking him apart. He was chopping up that front leg. Looked so calm, composed, found his range really early in the fight as well. And I think throughout he was sensational and really showed that step up in that we wanted to see, and now we realize, okay, he's ready for that elite of the division, and we can probably get a bit more excited as to how far he can go now if we weren't already as excited as we were excited before even.
Absolutely, Andy. Like, we've had conversations here on the Auld Triangle as well about, you know, performances, past performances, which one was his best. There's no doubt about it. What we seen UFC 292 was his best performance to date. Head and shoulders above what we've seen already, to be honest, in my opinion.
Undoubtedly, and it came at a time when he's fighting the head and shoulders the best fighter he's ever come across in his life. People don't go out there and just beat the living shit out of Neil Magny, like, to put it very bluntly, the way Ian Garry just did. It was a phenomenal performance, and like Ian, as you mentioned, like, he's a guy who we've all known the potential. Well, we've had, you know, we've had ideas in our head of the potential that Ian has, like, but it's very hard to know sometimes, I find, just how good an Irish fighter is, because you're like, geez, this guy could be really, really good. And oftentimes, they get to a certain level and then they fall short, and they rebuild from there. But with Ian, that performance to me is he's completely gone from a regional level fighter. He's completely gone from a UFC prospect. He is now a UFC contender, in my opinion. And I know he's not quite there in the rankings. He's not in top 5 ranking yet, but like, if you had said to me 12, 18 months ago, Ian Garry versus Khamzat Chimaev, Ian Garry versus Colby Covington, Ian Garry versus, insert fighter X at the very top, I'm thinking, oh God, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I'd be nervous. I wouldn't completely put him out, but I wouldn't have been confident. Whereas now, there's nothing. I wouldn't be picking against Ian Garry in any fight. Like now he doesn't have to show, not that he ever did, but he doesn't have to show me what he can do. It's other fighters need to show me that they can stop Ian Garry.
It was our opinions are based off the unknown, really. Like, and the unknown was him being in there with this caliber of opponent. And yes, the tests are going to get harder and harder, but there's been many other guys that went in there with Neil Magny and have actually struggled. Whereas Ian didn't break a sweat and was like. I had it like, you build up, you'll get your little bit of butterflies when you're watching it, just wondering what's going to happen ahead of the fight. Ian goes out, cracks him with that low hard calf kick straight away, takes Neil Magny off his feet, and instantly at that moment I was like, oh yeah, like, no problem, shit. no problem. Like, that's it. Here like, what's going to happen here? Just like, we have to talk about, the preparations and the skill set that you have is one thing. And Conor always had that. But what Conor always had as well was the ability to deliver in the big moments and create big moments as well. And that's exactly what Ian Garry is doing as well. He created this moment. He made it bigger, number one, by kind of nailing down about what Neil Magny said about beating his kid. Fair enough. He chose to go down that path. I can't argue against that at all. But also the fact that he put on a kind of an open workout the night before to create some more buzz, you know what I mean? So you're putting that extra bit of pressure on your shoulders, but you stay doing what you're doing if you can go in there and perform the way you're doing, because look, you can butter up all of that, or you can put a bow on all the other stuff, or what he says, or whether you like him or whether you don't like him, or whether you agree with what he says or whether you don't agree with what he says, whether you want to think that he's trying to imitate Conor or whether he's not. All that doesn't matter a fuck, because all that matters is what goes down inside that 15 or that 25 minutes inside the octagon. And if he's able to build upon that performance again and bring it into the next challenge, he can say or do what he likes. That's my opinion. I couldn't give a crap about what any of that other nonsensical stuff. It's all about how you fight. It's all about how you look in your fight, and then after that, you get free rein to do anything. That's what we're kind of dealing with here.
But he's always like, he's not imitating Conor. Like, he's not. He's like, he refers to Conor all the time, but he's not imitating.
People have been saying that. Look at any Irish fighter. Any Irish fighter that has come onto the scene since Conor McGregor and said something similar is sure, like,
Kiefer Crosbie will get it now next week. Or,
he absolutely will, and that's what they want to go to. It's just the kind of, it's the Twitter trolls and people, like, you can't pick apart his performance, so you gotta just look at other things. But at the end of the day, it don't matter, because you're going out there, you're performing, and if you stay winning, you can stay doing whatever the hell you like, and that's about the size of it. And look at next, he's talking about possibly UFC want him for November, he wants December. Who guys would you like to see him fight? Would you like to do the Jeff Neal fight again? He's talked about Wonderboy. I don't know if Wonderboy is the right move for the December fight. I'd prefer Wonderboy maybe to come in and compete on the Dublin card whenever it happens. But going forward for Ian Garry, I mean, it's very, very exciting. The tests are going to get bigger and better, but I think a Jeff Neal and a Wonderboy are pretty winnable fights for Ian Garry, but important phases in his building stage of his career, which he's currently in right now. And we can't forget that at 25 years of age, just 25 years of age, he's got plenty of time to grow into the fighter that he can be. What would you like to see next, lads? I'll leave it open, whoever wants to come in first. I'd love to see Wonderboy in Dublin personally. So if he is to have a fight before that, then the Jeff Neal would make the most sense. And it would, I imagine it would fit into that plan that he has. You have that one extra fight, and that be against Jeff Neal, and then you could nearly do a Dublin headliner against Wonderboy, because that would be just incredible. It's one of those fights that
you'd be dreaming of. And he said it himself in the post-fight interview. He called him out. It'd be an amazing clash of styles. And if you want to be one of the best strikers in the world, you got to beat the best. And there's no better man to go against than Wonderboy. But yeah, maybe they'll be the two fights that I'd like. If
100%. How are you feeling about it, Andy?
I am more than happy for him to take on Wonderboy right now, to be honest. Like, obviously the Jeff Neal fight never happened, but he's done this thing. It's like the Sean O'Malley where he kind of dismissed for a solid year and a half or 2 years the Cheeto Vera stuff. It's like, no, that's done. I've already beat him when he clearly lost. Ian's basically come out and said, no, I've already beaten him for sure before he's gotten there. So he's kind of built that narrative around him. Now, I'd watch that fight. I think he could sell that fight, especially on the Bad Blood, on the t-shirt that came out of that. But like, Wonderboy is that next step up for me. So like, that would kind of get the jitters flowing and it would bring out the naysayers to say, well, he's got great striking, but is he going to go out there and beat Wonderboy after seeing his striking?
I'd say no. I think that's why I labeled maybe his next fight or two still as building fights into, because I don't think the real jitters or the real questions are going to come until we see him in there. Like, for me, the fight, and one of the fights that I want to see most of all inside the UFC full stop right now, is Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. And I think that's the only fight for me now that, like, I think weirdly enough, up against any of the top five, obviously you're going to have certain doubts, but after what I've seen against Neil Magny, there's no doubt in my mind that Ian Garry goes out there and beats Wonderboy and beats Jeff Neal. I'd struggle to say with relative ease, but
I'd be strongly favored. I think a lot of people
he went out there like how, like, we take a lot of things for granted when we're watching fights, but how hard it is to go into a cage for 15 minutes with another person and come out with not a mark on you as well. It's like,
and he looked like he could go for another 15 as well.
Absolutely. Like, ticking off all the boxes. But like, okay, Andy, if it was Wonderboy later on in the year, and what Dana said was Wonderboy turned it down, that's fair. You're not going to fight straight away.
Wonderboy did also come out and say, I don't know who it was to.
He said it to Helwani when you talked to Helwani, but the latest of what he's saying is that he turned it down. Well, that's what Dana White is telling us. But I mean, that fight,
because he wants Usman or something, or is that it?
Probably doesn't want to fight Ian Garry after seeing that against Neil Magny. Let's be real. I can't blame the man either. But look, at that thing might come if it was to be Wonderboy Thompson in December. Who would you put him in with in Dublin then? Because I feel that Wonderboy matchup is the perfect matchup to have in Dublin. A good striking stand-up battle.
Fuck that. Give me Colby Covington. I want Dublin. Now,
I've heard you say this before. Let's be real now. Let's be real here for a minute. You think Colby Covington is going to turn down his number one spot next year against Leon Edwards to come fight Ian Garry on a fight night card in Dublin when he's that big of a pay-per-view draw? It's not going to happen. Let's be real here.
So, sell
it to me.
Like, just give me the fight.
Sell it to me.
Okay. All right. So here's what you do, right? You have oh wait, hang on now. Who's Leon? Oh wait, no, hang on. Leon's gonna be fighting Colby, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
I haven't thought this through.
Yeah, you haven't really thought this one through, have you?
Okay, all right. Well,
Shavkat Rakhmonov. Let's go Shavkat in Dublin. Why not?
Do you think they'd fight each other given they were teammates? Now, just throwing it out there, they probably would. Ian mentioned in his post-fight press conference when his name was brought up, and it was like, he obviously, guys like Gilbert Burns, he's refused. Someone mentioned Shavkat Rakhmonov's name, and Ian said, "You know what? It'd be a hell of a show if it was put together." That was his exact response, which interesting
to me is kind of.
He doesn't seem to have the same relationship like the way he does with Burns.
But like, yeah, Burns is obviously in his corner. That's a completely different relationship. But obviously when you're traveling around, which is another excellent thing that Ian Garry is doing, is getting around from gym to gym. You know, you can't really call anywhere your true home. So you have the luxury of saying, if you're Ian Garry, you know, a guy like Gilbert Burns is a teammate and a guy like Shavkat Rakhmonov isn't. Now, if it was me, I'd probably say things the opposite way around, because Shavkat, in my opinion, is a much difficult challenge than Gilbert Burns would be. But, you know, obviously Ian and Gilbert have created that relationship. So, I mean, to round off the conversation, it's it's just fantastic settings that we're in for Ian Garry now. And it's like wondering when the next person that was going to be from Ireland that was going to break through. And next thing, just not out of nowhere, but just over the last year, we have had this explosion of Ian Garry coming up and announcing himself in the welterweight division, and the slew of signings from Irish mixed martial arts as well. It's absolutely crazy the way it's all materialized. But like, the accumulation of whatever Ian Garry's next fight is going to be will lead to that Dublin show, which will be really, really special whenever it does happen.
Throw out one more name that I wouldn't. Let's say if we are thinking that Wonderboy perhaps happens in Dublin, if not the Jeff Neal fight, because Ian seems to be looking past that. Kevin Holland, I know he's ranked lower than him, but like, that could be a fun one.
He's matched up against Jack Della Maddalena. All
right, well, Andy needs to do his fucking research next time before we have this conversation.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Throwing Kamaru Usman there, fucking, we'll go with
yeah,
that.
but I think Ian is going to be looking up and not down anyway ahead of that. Like, Sean Brady would be a one, maybe he's not matched up at the minute. He'd be one kind of tipping around on that. But like, I mean, Ian can say that he already has a win over Jeff Neal, but UFC might say, we don't care. You're going in there and you're fighting him any which way. So, you know, the story is there, the rivalry is there, and that's an easy fight to sell. It might not be too kind of luxurious for Ian Garry in the way he's looking and the way he handled Neil Magny, but ultimately what Dana said is that we have a plan, we have a blueprint for guys like Ian Garry. So I think, you know, it'll be a conversation that Ian and the UFC will have together. And very, very exciting to see. If it will be in November, it will be in Madison Square Garden. If it's in December, it will be in Vegas. Fingers crossed for December, and be more of a chance I get to it. But I think we're all in agreement, no matter what. If we can't kind of come to the reasoning about what the next opponent should be, it's definitely, we'll all come to the agreement that it's very, very exciting times for Ian Garry at this stage in his career. And there's going to be plenty and plenty more to talk about down the line when he comes up against the elite level of the welterweight division. Moving on to Brad Katona, a guy who picked up the Ultimate Fighter season 31, I believe it was, title with a win over Cody Gibson at UFC 292 as well, becoming the first ever Ultimate Fighter champ, and a great win and a great performance for Brad Katona, who, you know, we spoke about on the breakdowns, in that a guy who exited the UFC in the past and went about getting back there in the hardest way possible. Went over to Brave, fought a couple of different challengers over there, picked up a title, came through the tough household, came through some tough tests there, and, you know, came through losing the first round against Cody Gibson and battled back in rounds 2 and rounds 3 to rightfully pick up the decision. And, you know, Andy, it's a fantastic story for Brad, and it, you know, commitment and dedication that was even highlighted by Conor McGregor, his seasoned coach for a period of time, and a guy that was giving him his kudos, and rightly so after that win. Brad Katona going back and doing things the hard way, but he finds himself where he deserves to be now, and that's back in the UFC. Yeah,
like he's just in the cage and out of the cage, I suppose. He's shown his resilience, his grit, and his he's just a savage. Like I thought he's like the fights that he's put on, the last number of fights, has been incredible, and he's showed that he can stay in there when the going gets tough inside within a fight. And I thought the way he battled back and really put it on Cody Gibson was so impressive. And to do that, as you said, like, to win tough the first time is difficult to do, but then to go back in there and you're in that environment, and he kind of has that perfect personality where he doesn't really care about rubbing people the wrong way. He doesn't really care about being a thorn in someone's side or people not liking him, because you know, we saw that kind of weird awkward clip where him and Cody Gibson are going back, and you're just like, so I don't know, you're like, I don't really want to be watching this just kind of feels a bit awkward, but he just doesn't care, and he just goes in there and punches them in the face and finds a way to win each time. And he's battle tested. He's undefeated since he left the UFC, and he's absolutely deserves. He obviously won the Brave title. He deserves a spot, and fair play to him. And yeah, probably somebody, you know, it's hard to know when to kind of classify someone as Irish MMA, and I hate to be just jumping in on the bandwagon here, but he is, you know, he's been around the Irish scene for a while now, so he's not going anywhere, and he's one that should be adopted as our Irish fighters we'll take his success any day of the week.
That's it. We've claimed people for far less in the past, and I'm sure it'll be no different. Caoilte, I'm sure you have the same sentiments about Brad Katona, and I'm sure you were watching back the fight as well. Like I said, it took a certain level of calmness from Brad to come back after a first round that didn't go his way, but battled back into it. A big problem in the semi-final of his fight that he wasn't firing off with the right hand. He was leading in with the jab, and Conor was saying, get that backhand firing. And it was something that he managed to kind of get out and figure it out and bring into the final with Cody Gibson, and landing some big shots and initiating the clinch in the right moments and just kind of making it a dirty dog fight. And that seems to be where he kind of flourishes most inside the cage.
100%. It was an amazing comeback, amazing fight. One fight of the night, for God's sake. It was incredible on that card, and it deserved a bit of he looked a lot better than I feel like he did inside the tough house. And what a performance! Looks better and better every time we see him. I do love the little bit of a storyline of him. Obviously now he's the first person to win tough twice, but the fact that he got to switch teams after being called a diva and then goes back and just beats his old team, it's like, oh yeah, that's what you get. I love that. So it was a brilliant season and a brilliant fight from him, and he deserved that extra 50k, and he deserves to be back in the UFC. He shouldn't have been cut in the first place, in my opinion. So yeah.
All right, Nathan Kelly was in action on the same night as Brad Katona, lads. Or no, the day before Brad Katona. Busy weekend for SPG and John Kavanagh. Madison Square Garden was the setting. Nathan Kelly went out there, took on Damian Nelson in the PFL playoffs. Good spot for Nathan Kelly. Kicking off the main card there, Madison Square Garden went out live on ESPN and TSN, and obviously back home in UK and Ireland on the Zone as well. And he delivered a decision win for Nathan Kelly. Fight of the night it was awarded, and I don't think that Nathan was getting enough credit for this win, because look, we had him on the last episode of the Auld Triangle, and looking back at Damian Nelson and his record, the Damian Nelson that came in to fight Nathan Kelly here was a completely different fighter than we had seen in the past. Obviously took some time away from the cage, worked on and developed his game. Definitely caught me by surprise, and a few other people that were looking at it that were kind of doing a little bit of study on the fight. And I'm sure it caught a little bit Nathan by surprise as well going in there. But, what makes a good fighter is making those adjustments on the fly and kind of dealing with it. And I think that's exactly what Nathan did. Really, really good performance from Nathan Caoilte. Would you agree?
I would, yeah. I think it was very good. Maybe not his best performance, but I thought he was given a very tough fight from Nelson. He really put it up to him. Nathan looked sharp at times. He was landing his strikes very nicely. He's good low kick as well. He was eating a few of them as well from Nelson. But I feel like he really kind of didn't take over the fight. He was given a good test, but he never looked like he was going to lose it, if that makes sense. I felt like he was really kind of keeping good range and everything, and doing quite well throughout, in my opinion.
Absolutely, I would agree too, and I'm sure you would, Andy. And I mean, a lot of people have. We've seen Nathan Kelly go in there and put guys out instantly in the first round, and suddenly he goes to a decision, and people are saying, "Oh, this, that, and the other." But the valuable kind of scenario you find yourself in there is that you've got 15 minutes experience, in cage experience. You can try and simulate it with your sparring sessions, but nothing is the same as getting in there and actually doing it live in the moment. And he got a good 15 minutes under his belt. We've seen a little bit more of his striking as well, obviously coming in there as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. We've seen him do very well in the grappling before, but I think a good valuable 15 minutes. And Nathan said himself he was a little bit disappointed it wasn't the best that we've seen him in there, but I think the longer it goes on, the more he assesses the performance, Andy, the more he'll be happier with it, and that in-cage experience is going to be very valuable in his career.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's 8 in a row now. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those first round finishes, and we're talking, a quick first round finish, a 9-second knockout. The Shamrock one, I think, was less than a minute. He's not spending a lot of time in the cage. So the last time he went to a decision was against Scott Pedersen, and that was, if I recall correctly, was more so a grappling based fight for the most part. And this one, he was in a fist fight here. He was in a firefight. Damian Nelson brought it to him. I thought Nathan started very quickly, very strongly. like immediately it was kind of a bit like, when not quite like Ian Garry in that Ian dropped him, but like a very strong calf kick to open the fight, and from there it was back and forth. He looked like he was eating a good few shots towards the end of that first round. I know Dan Hardy and them were kind of saying that he looked like he was hurt. I didn't think he looked hurt at the end of the first, but a solid 15 minutes. And when we were talking about this fight heading into it, and even with Nathan, I was thinking this is a showcase fight for him, and these are generally showcase fights for Nathan in PFL. But when you think about his progression moving forward, like he's looking to go back into say that Challenger Series and then into the 145 pound tournament next season perhaps. So once you get there, the level of competition is going to go steeply up. So to have 15 minutes like this in here is probably going to stand to him, and he will have adjustments to make. Like Dan Hardy was making the point that, I'm not one to say this now, but when Dan Hardy's saying, he needs to start moving his head off the center line, little things like that he can then go away, look at the 15 minutes of film and say, right, well, here's what I need to work on to get me to that level where when I come up against a guy who's going to be better than a Damian Nelson, that could be, you could be in a seriously tough spot then. So yeah, good experience. Win and learn, as they say.
100%. And I just want to reiterate as well is that like the showcase fight and us maybe labeling it and talking it like that way is genuinely how I felt about that based off what we had seen in past performances from Damian Nelson. But he came in here and he had leveled up 2- and 3-fold, looked much stronger striking, much like was able to kind of counter all of the grappling exchanges. And I think further focus, like I said, like Nathan Kelly to be in a position where you're dealing with that and to overcome that and to come away winning the decision, I think, he can take a great deal of confidence out of that performance and move on into the next one in Dublin, hopefully is where he's looking to go next. Andy?
Yeah, just one more point, because I realize I'm highlighting maybe a negative, but a real positive that I saw from watching it anyway is Nathan Kelly seems very composed and calm when he's in those kind of, when he's in a firefight. So when he's, when Damian Nelson is putting it on him, you watch some fighters and maybe they shell up a little bit or they don't react well to shots, and Nathan is not one of those guys. Like he looked very composed and knew what to do to kind of then take the fight in his direction.
Yeah, 100%. Very, very good point, Andy, and very excited to see. Hopefully they'll put Nathan on that Dublin show. I know it'll draw a crowd and get a good solid matchup for him there. That will lead him right into the Challenger Series, and hopefully we get the chance to kind of speak with him ahead of that. I'm sure we will, and I look forward to that as well. Before we head over and look at the domestic action in Virtus MMA this past weekend, I just want to mention Nadine Abbott-Bissett was supposed to fight in Combatia Global. Unfortunately, she was forced out of the fight for medical reasons. Nothing confirmed yet. I don't think it's anything too serious, but we do wish her well. Hopefully everything is all good from her end. And very unfortunate, you make the trip, you make way, and something like this happens. Obviously, you can't control these kind of things, but hopefully, like we said, Nadine is all right, and we'll get to see her in there and competing soon. And, I guess this is not Combatia's fault, but never seems to be a fight that happens over there that goes without incident now. So hopefully things kind of get squared away. We want to see our athletes in there and we want to see them fighting. So hopefully that they can sort something out for Nadine sooner rather than later. And we see her getting to compete before the year is out. Right, lads, over to Virtus MMA. Which took place this past weekend. A fantastic card from top to bottom, headlined by Damian McKenna and Luke Richardson. We had the featherweight Grand Prix, the one-night Grand Prix that took place as well. And yeah, let's kind of talk about it and break it down. Maybe I'll go over to Caoilte first, just for his quick thoughts. Obviously, Damian McKenna picked up the win in the main event, and a good win for him. And Oma, that his gym up in Oma as well, had a very, very good night overall. How did you find that performance, or maybe a quick run through by yourself and Andy of that card and a couple of standout performances there? Another good couple of wins from Jake Nye and a few others as well on the card.
Yeah, overall very good card. Like the lads at Virtus, they've had to face a bit of adversity this week with replacements, fights falling out. Obviously the Gary Rooney fight fallout, and I think they had another one in the week, so they had to get a replacement for the tournament. But they really put on a very good show, I must admit. The main event, fair play, Damian McKenna was very good. His opponent, Luke Richardson, he came to fight as well, and he brought out, I thought Damian, who came out with the win in this one, was was very, very good. His striking looked sharp, his grappling, he was very aggressive. And you know what? He's under a lot of pressure in that environment. He's a home fighter. He's the main event. He's probably one of the main ticket sellers as well, and has to go out and perform to his best. And he really did, I think. And Luke Richardson gave him a fantastic fight as well. But Dane McKenna was one of the standouts, of course, and really topped off a great night for Virtus and for OMA, the gym up there as well, and everyone involved. But overall in the card, I think Andy would have watched some as well. I think we could all agree on some of the standouts. I think Jake Nye, once again, one of the most active amateurs in Ireland, he was just incredible.
So slick.
Yeah,
the young lad. So like he's really, really exciting to watch. He is really standing out for me on the amateur scene at the moment.
Absolutely, Andy. I'm sure you were just as impressed as Damien McKenna, who kind of showcased his overall abilities. We've seen some grappling, we've seen some striking, a nice jab on occasion from Damien McKenna, and like Caoilte just said, a tough fight for him too. You know, and that it's important to be getting matched up in these tough fights. It'll help his development, and that was a really solid win. A couple of fun striking exchanges throughout that fight.
Yeah, and like being completely blunt, you never know what you're going to get these like at regional level MMA, and you've coming in that you maybe you're not familiar with, like what's this going to be like? But Richardson really brought the fight to Damien McKenna. He made him work for every second, and yeah, I thought he looked. Look, I remember, like, whenever I think of Damien McKenna, I always think back to, I can't remember which IMMAF tournament it was, but he had a ferocious knockout in it, and his hands are crisp, but he really did. He showed his grappling capability here. He's shown a more well-rounded game, really, really positive stuff, and that's a couple of events now. He's, you know, there's a bit of pressure, you know, even, I know it's local MMA, it's amateur MMA, but at the same time, when you're kind of being positioned at right, this is a hometown show, hometown fans, and that's pressure. So all of that will stand to him, and yeah, fair play to him.
Andy, I'll stick with you just to kind of take us through the Grand Prix, the flyweight Grand Prix that did take place on the night. It was semi-finals and a final, featherweight, excuse me, sorry. Yeah. Featherweight, which took place over one night, semi-finals earlier on in the night, and the finals, obviously. Take us through that and your thoughts on those fights themselves.
Yeah, firstly, I liked that Virtus did it, and it worked out really, really well, because you had Dale Sheridan who won. He had a vicious finish, a KO, you know, kind of big hook that landed in the semi-final.
Monster KO.
To get that fight done in the semis and early on. So the way they had it was like kind of the semi-finals were towards the start of the night, you know, kind of when the K1 or novice or whatever else was going on, to obviously give the lads a bit of time to then go again later in the night. So Dale Sheridan won his one by KO in the semis, and then Kieran Brady won via standing rear naked choke. So yeah, it worked out really well that both the semi-finals ended quickly. So then you know, you have two guys that are fresh, and you don't have someone who's going through an absolute war going into a final. But then the final, you know, having seen Dale Sheridan the last number of fights, he's had some finishes and he looked ferocious, but Kieran Brady really took over in this final. His grappling was very, very solid, and a lot of it was he was ending up in positions where he was getting to mount. Sheridan would kind of bridge to basically move positions and to try something, but he'd give up his back. And what ended up was, you know, relatively close first and second round, but Brady really, he separated himself in the third, and in the end, it was a fairly dominant win. But yeah, really, really impressive stuff from Kieran Brady, and a really fun Grand Prix overall. And you know, I was quite impressed by it anyway. But yeah, so
love me a Grand Prix. I love me a Grand Prix. Takes me back to the Pride days. Just love it. I just love that. Look at this. It's a format that's probably better suited for lads like myself who can sit down and watch it happen rather than take place and fighting a couple of times in the one night. But I think what we're looking for here in these kind of shows is a little bit of difference, something that kind of makes you stick out a little bit from the crowd. And what Virtus have been successfully done in their two kind of shows so far is done that in the tournaments. I think that's kind of the road that you were kind of going down there, Andy, is it?
Yeah, pretty much, because I think they were saying that like they're not really looking to put on titles, because they're like, you know, there's a lot of promotions around Ireland at this point, and there's a lot of titles. So I like that. Well, from a promotion's perspective, you probably want the title, but at the same time, like when every second amateur in the country is a champion, it kind of takes away from it a little bit. So I kind of like that they've stayed away from that a little bit and said, look, we'll leave the titles elsewhere and go here. But there was another fight on the card that probably would have been perhaps for a title. You know, anytime you see Jess Paulo, well, anytime you see Irish MMA, the chances are Jess Paolo's fighting, and anytime Jess Paolo's fighting, the chances are he's fighting for a title. Now, it wasn't this time, but he got the win here again against Stephen Cunningham, the hometown fighter from Team Rhino Oma. It wasn't the prettiest affair, if I'm honest with you. And look, Paolo is so effective in what he does. He is brilliant at just getting up against you, grinding out these positions, not giving a fighters a centimeter on the ground, and really staying close, and then landing the odd shot here and there. I personally would like to see him throwing a little bit more, maybe some more shots when he gets to those positions. It's just it turned into a bit of a boring fight, if I'm honest with you. And I think it'll really stand to him if you know, he's getting to those really dominant positions. But if he can start to work in a bit more damage, you know, he's had a lot of fights now. I imagine, I don't know, maybe he'll be looking to go pro soon. And when you go 5
you're going to have
rounds,
to kind of adjust that kind of style, really, Andy. Like with anybody that, you know, that's the adjustments from an amateur fighter turning professional. Obviously, you'll have the longer rounds, you'll have, you know, the use of more weapons and elbows and stuff. But what we're seeing and the kind of landscape that we're working towards in mixed martial arts and judging and scoring fights does relay a lot on damage right now, and what you can do. You simply will not get rewarded around for positional purposes. You've got to do something with the position. You've got to land damage, and it's a big focal point in scoring fights right now. So, you know, I can definitely see it with Jess and with other fighters. It's the battle that you have to go through from when you're turning from amateur. What might get you to win in an amateur fight might not necessarily transcribe over into the professional ranks and get you a win there.
Absolutely. Just to maybe run down the rest, because we're kind of a bit tight for time here, but a couple of the rest of one. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant fight between Shay Cleland and Owen Masoliver, two young lads. Really, really good stuff here. You know, Cleland started really fast in the first round, putting it on him up against the cage, and Masoliver managed to kind of duck behind him, get to the back, and he was kind of almost going for the rear naked choke. He almost had it at the bell, I thought. And then the second and third round were much closer, a lot more on the feet, a lot of scrambles. And it was really back and forth both rounds. Two very, very close rounds. And in the end, Cleland took both of them. But yeah, I thought it was a really good fight, and one that both will take a lot from. Dean Maguire had a ferocious knockout over Hugo Strutt. Strutt was looking, he was kind of pressing the action up against the cage and using his grappling early on. Wasn't a whole lot that really happened in the first round, and then it exploded in the second when with Dean Maguire, I think he almost had a standing guillotine at one point. Strutt survived, they broke away, and then he put it on him against the cage, and Strutt looked a little bit zapped of energy, and Maguire capitalized massively, landed a huge right hook and dropped him. And then outside of that, Dara Ward, who I've been keeping an eye on a good bit, I actually missed the first round of this. I caught just the end of it, but I'm from listening to commentators and chatting to his coach and stuff, it was a bit of a slow start from Dara, but once he got the fight to the ground in the second, he was very, very clinical, got the squeeze. It was kind of like a face crank. He didn't quite get it underneath the chin for the choke, but a tight squeeze, got the submission win, and he advances onwards in his amateur career. He's doing really well. And yeah, there's some really good fights on there as well. Nathan McGillian getting a fairly dominant win as well. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the fights. And yeah, good to see Virtus back for their second show.
Absolutely, looking forward to the next one too. Anything else you'd like to add, Caoilte, before we move over and speak with Ciarán Clarke? All good?
All good, yeah. No, fantastic card as per usual, and fair play to them for pulling it off.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about the UFC Paris and the fights of Caolan Loughran and Rhys McKee in just a little bit. But first, we are going to go over and speak with Ciarán Clarke, who is over in a kind of a double dose of Can today, to be honest. With Kiefer on earlier, we speak to Ciarán Clarke now as well, ahead of his bantamweight debut within Bellator. Not the first time he's fought within bantamweight division, but we catch up with him. I'm going to steer away. Anyone want to help me out with the opponent that he's fighting at you at Bellator 299 in Dublin, guys? I know Caoilte excellently. Caoilte's got this nailed. Go on, Caoilte. Ciarán Clarke fights
Przemysław Górny.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, in the interview, you absolutely nailed that. So let's head out and catch up with Ciarán Clarke, and we'll be right back fairly soon.
And now we are delighted to be joined by Droghada's finest, Ciarán Clarke, who looks to extend his unbeaten run in Bellator and in professional MMA at Bellator 299, coming up in just a short number of weeks now in Dublin. But we're not speaking to you from Dublin, Ciarán. We're not speaking to you from Drogheda. Where are you? You're in the south of France, are you?
Yeah, here in the south of France, all right. Yeah, so it's a bit of a different scene, all right, than where I usually be. Yeah.
It's now Cannes. That's very similar to Drogheda, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you've all supercars flowing around and load of grafters.
How are you getting on anyway over there? You're obviously you're over with Connor and the team, and I see there's a squad of you over there at the moment. It looks like you're getting in some good training.
Yeah, getting some great training. As we all know, the team Connor has around him. When it comes down to everything, I mean, he's the best of the best for everything, so we're all just, really taking advantage of it as well, to be around that and, to see how he operates and the team around him does as well, so like that, as I said, they've all been 100% absolute gentlemen, literally took me in as if I knew them these years and, just absolutely brilliant experience.
Absolutely. Is this your first time heading over for something like this with Connor, or have you been over before?
Yeah, this is the first time we've headed over with Connor. I was supposed to go to Dubai there a few years ago. I forget when that was, before the pandemic, I think. But this is the first time coming over here, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's pretty exciting. It's a real kind of seal of approval that he wants you over training with him. I'd say it's a mad old experience.
Yeah, I got a bit of training with him there a few weeks ago in the gym, and he was, you kind of got chatting to me after, and just normal chit chat, what's the weight, and fighting coming up, and then he was back in the gym, and he was kind of like wanting to pair with me and stuff, and I was like, it was good, like, I'm obviously safe training partner and everything else, and I'm not kind of probably the type to be scourging for photos and things like that. I think, and I think he probably just sees me for who I am, and I'm just training for my fights and focusing myself and that, so like that. Then just got the phone call to come over, and I was delighted then to come over. I was buzzing, like, to even think that he'd even to bring me over and to let me into, I suppose, a part of his life in a way, to be training with me,
100%. Like, when you're over there, obviously you're away from your natural settings, Ciarán, but it probably also provides you a platform to really focus in and zone down on your training, where you're kind of just living that full-on training lifestyle with the rest of the lads over there. Is it kind of like that over there for you?
Yeah, big time. Like that, I'm very, regimental, and just, if there's 10 minutes out of my day, I'm all over the place. So back home, it's just like real, like just boom, 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 regimental, and then obviously it's the same here. But I was peaking a bit early, and John kind of pulled me off the mat one of the days and was like, look, you're peaking a bit early, like, it was 6 weeks out, 2 weeks ago, like, and I was like, I was flying fit, like, ready to rock that week. And he was like, look, we're going to pull it back this week, just, I don't want to see you for a week in Dublin, train and Drogheda, just pull back a little bit this week. And one or two other coaches back home in Drogheda that I do meet conditioning with and stuff are like, look, you're flying, like, pull it back a bit. And then this opportunity came to come over here, so then it was kind of like, I'm catching up on sleep here, I'm not walking me dogs, hour of the day, or things like that, like not driving up and back to Dublin, and I'm in the hotel rooms, I'm sitting here before you rang watching Craig Jones, instructionals, just things like that, really immersing myself in it,
How long have you been over there now, Ciarán?
I've been here now 10 days. 11 days, sorry. Tomorrow's my last day. So nice.
And like, what is your standard day looking like over there when you are when you're kind of immersed over in training? You training once a day, twice a day? Is it mixed between kind of strength and conditioning sessions and skill-based sessions / sparring and stuff like that? What is it like an average day look like for you over there?
Yeah, well, like, John actually just said it to me when he mentioned to me about coming over, and I was like, oh, because he rang me initially and he was like, oh, hey, how you getting on? I was like, oh, grand, I actually got, I was telling them, I got 9 hours sleep the other night, and, I was like, because it was something that, like, I was just, really foot to the mat, you know what I mean, going all out, and told him that, and he was like, "Ah, great stuff," and he was like, "Look," told me with the opportunity to go over here, and he was like, "Look, it'll probably be once, twice a day, you know, you'd be taking your rest days properly when you should be," because Conor's big about that. And actually one of the coaches here was just like, "You know what the best training is, Ciaran, is rest." And that's something, like, I'm glad you asked, because like, it was something that I really got to know about myself, and not even just about myself, but like I found out a lot about myself working with the coaches and that here. You know, the type of athlete I am. I don't even like saying I'm an athlete because I'm a fighter. Everything I do is to make me a better fighter. But it was realising even things like that to become an athlete in my mind, and to like be like, you know, take me rest days when I should. Because then the next session or the next day you're actually going to be able to go even harder, you know, and that's part of your training, your rest, and you know, whereas you're just not all go and just run yourself into the ground, you know. And like that, I'm coming in fresher into the sessions, and I'm working with Tristan now that does work with Conor, his nutritionist, and he's working with me for this camp for, you know, obviously going down the weight class and stuff. And yeah, just really learning loads about myself, you know, even just different styles in my game, even getting tips off Phil Sutcliffe about boxing and stuff, and giving me great confidence, and you know, just unbelievable really. I have to say I've learned a lot in these last 11 days, and yeah, as far as the training, I mean, I don't have to mention who I'm training with, and you know, the likes of Lee Hammond, you know, Kiefer getting signed, you know, Daniele's here as well, and you know, obviously Conor, double world champion, and Ciarán Clarke, and I mean, they're only fresh off the tough experience. So look, again, as I said, I don't have to mention their level, and yeah, like that, it was actually a perfect timing for me, because I was pulling it back, and you know, like that, just getting good training. And Conor's really all about, like, the hour you're there, the hour and a half you're there, it's like there's no messing. Like, it's like it's specific stuff. It's, you know, you're not coming in and you're not just going through the motions. And that's one thing I learned. You know, I'm not, you know, when I am resting, the next day you're able to come in. You're not just going through the motions, just doing your session. You're fully there, you know.
So do you think this kind of has come at the perfect time, given the fact that you're going down to bantamweight, you have a bit more time to rest and everything aside, and especially since it's new territory for you, going down to bantamweight for the first time as a pro?
Yeah, big time. Like I said, you know, I think it came at a great time, and you know, it just really, you know, rejuvenated me nearly in a way, and you know, just coming back to my routine then again, and like it's, you know, I am such a regimental person, but it was to get me out of that, and you know, really, you know, like I said, mentioned there, to be over here and immerse myself in it, and yeah, then when I'm back home, then ramp it up a bit for 2 to 3 weeks, and then, you know, really, it just breaks it up for me, you know, and then to come off this experience, to be over here with Conor and the lads, and it's brilliant, you know.
The decision, Ciarán, for you to move down to bantamweight at this stage in your career, how did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, well, it was so 3 reasons. The first one was I knew I could make it, and it was always lingering in the back of my mind. It was like maybe 2 years more that I was like, right, hold on here, like I knew I was always coming in, not cutting weight for the featherweight. I felt fresh, you can see in me fights, and that was one thing that John was, you know, considering when we were, you know, you do have that style where you're coming in third round fresh, but you know, I wasn't cutting weight, and you know, I knew I could make it, you know, and I knew I could make it, and you know, it was that decision, right, hold on, am I in the right weight class here to go further? And as I start getting, you know, I'm 7-0 now, and hope, please God, 8-0, like, you're going to start fighting better and better guys, and which goes into the second reason. When you go up the higher, the, you know, caliber fighter, those extra few kilos is massive advantage, you know, and that's why I'm giving up. I'm the smaller man in there. You can see, you know what I mean. You can see that I'm giving up at least 10 pounds. You know what I mean. And I know he's mentioned about my opponent the last time, cutting the weight to come down, but like, he fought a welterweight, lightweight. You seen it there. He was massive, like, you know what I mean. And I don't think people would have mentioned that if he had a, you know, they would have mentioned that if he had a one, and they would mention the weight cut and stuff, but they didn't mention the kilos I was giving away. And my last 2 fights have been catch weights, 150, 148. You know, like, I'm giving up weight in there. You know what I mean? Big weight. I think the only fight I wasn't undersized was when I actually fought a bantamweight at 61, at 66 in my pro debut, and in George County, like, and yeah, I just feel, you know, as I was getting up the ranks, you know, those few kilos are going to make the difference, and I can feel it. You know what I mean? Going with the bigger lads and stuff, like even all the lads are big here, you feel the size difference and stuff, and maybe my style has altered a little bit over the years because of that, you know. So, but now I really feel like it's like I'm in the right weight class now. I can really feel, you know, I have Tristan there. You know, everything's just dialed in. I just kind of like I was watching Rocky IV earlier there, and I really feel like I'm like the Ivan Drago, taking a bit of that kind of like, you know, what would you say, like been dialed in the machine and of the Rocky mentality, you know what I mean? Like it's like,
Yeah,
I really feel like that, you know, if that makes sense, you know. And it's just like, you know, I just feel everyone's coming together. I'm feeling in top shape. I'm, you know, coming in properly fueled this time. You know, I just feel I'm in the right weight class. I feel it could be like, you know, the real Ciarán Clarke in there now. Not that I wasn't. I mean, I've shown I'm tough and, you know, everything on my skill set, of course, up until now undefeated. But I really feel this is like, you know, 2.0 nearly, you know, the boy. And sorry, the third reason then was I had a conversation with Dan Healy, and which I'd like to just thank him. He's done a lot working me out the last year to 2 years, and always with the team in SPG. And it was a conversation I had with him, and really good conversation. It was just he didn't tell me anything. He just a conversation, and basically what he said was, you know, what I took from the conversation was fighting the bigger man or cutting the weight, which obviously both have that dangerous, which is cutting weight. It's dangerous going in and fighting, and then on top of it, or fighting the bigger man. He told me, you know, he didn't tell me, but he told me, you know, what I took from the conversation was fighting the bigger man is longevity, your health going forward as your career. You know, you're better off, you know, fighting lads the same size. And make no mistake about it, I'm not going down this way. You know, some lads go down, 90%, most people go down weight to have an advantage. I'm going down the way to be a fair game, you know what I mean? To be the same. Like, I'm not going to be bigger than these lads, or I'm just going down to be the same weight as these lads. You know, I'd love to be fighting a 66, 61 kg guys, not cutting weight. But obviously, it's not the sport we're in. We're fighting people that want an advantage, and, you know, in any way possible. But I'm just going down for fair game. That's all it is now. And like I said, I do think it's going to see the difference.
Yeah, what difference? Sorry, Caoilte. I was just going to say, just on the bantamweight, like, what differences have you kind of felt in the training room or when you're sparring in comparison? You know, obviously you're trying to kind of keep your weight down a little bit. You aren't really cutting any weight. Is it something where you have to focus a little bit more time on your nutrition now, or do you see any benefits of the move down already?
Yeah, well, to be honest, like, I'm eating more now. You know, I'm eating more because, like, I'm working with Tristan, and I'm eating more in the sense that, you know, because fighters have this mentality that they always should be hungry and they always should be suffering, and, you know, you shouldn't be, you know, you're cutting weight, you have this in your mind, you know, if you see the scales going up, it's an unhealthy relationship, whereas you should be fueling your sessions, you know. And that's, again, like I said, what I've been learning, talking to Tristan and working with him, you know. I need to be fueling myself, fueling my body. I'm not you know, I'm not a Weight Watchers there losing weight, you know, and seeing the scales go up and down. It's nothing to do with that, you know. So, like that, the weight actually hasn't changed. I'm the same weight I'd be as featherweight now, you know, because I didn't cut weight, you know what I mean? So, like, yeah, nothing's changed. The only thing that has changed is, like, I'm, you know, going with lighter bodies now, you know what I mean? I'm like, right, I'm going to go with the more scrambly speed guys, you know what I mean? And, you know, I thought that it would be an adjustment to the start, but John was like, hold on, you're training how many years with your brother? Like, you know, your younger brother that was lighter than you. You know, Franz Malambos, the Brad Katonas, you know, which is one of my main training partners, you know. You know, all these guys, and, you know, that's not going to be the issue, you know what I mean? It's, you know, and like that, the speed, the pace in the fight is different, of course, but, you know, as we know, I have you know, I always, you know, working my cardio hard, and I always put a pace in lads, so it wasn't that. It's just probably what I'd say is, like, yeah, like that, it was just, you know, working with the lads that are the same way as me now. Not that they weren't, but, like, I was working with bigger lads, you know what I mean? And you take the extra few knocks, like, you know, you take the extra few knocks, and you're working with the bigger people and stuff, and, you know, it is tougher. Like, it's the size. Like I said, I always be able to put the pace, had the cardio, but it's more the size and the knocks you take. It's harder, you know.
Ciaran, your fights are always so entertaining, and we always talk about this, and part of that is the adversity that you've had to come through in fights, and then to pull it out of the bag and get the win. When you're talking about that conversation with Dan Healy and the longevity, is it specifically brain trauma that you're thinking of there?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, you know, I've 30 plus fights. I'm training over 12 years, you know what I mean? And you know, I mean, like that, as I said, it's, you know, and I've had me few wars amateur as well, and fought tough lads, and I fought the best amateur as well, so they weren't easy fights, and you know, so like that is a thing, you know what I mean? And then obviously coming in with the training, the sparring, you know what I mean? Look, marked up here now, you know what I mean? You don't want to be
almost worse when you're getting prepared for the fight. Like,
yeah,
it always is. Take more damage.
It always is, yeah. My family and all that, my girlfriend would be always laughing. They'd be worse in the fights, but obviously some of them were tough. But some of them might come out unscratched, you know what I mean? Yeah, that is definitely it, Andy. Yeah, and you know, it's you know, at the end of the day, fighting has been my life, and it is you know, carved me to the person I am. The person sitting in front of you today that's talking to you, and the man I am, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I've other things to look forward to in my life. It's only going to begin, you know, whether it be starting a family and, you know, all those things to look forward to, and I want to be able to enjoy them, and I don't want to be one of these lads that, you know, we've seen Korean Zombie the weekend, he said, like, you know, he called it a day when it should have been, and I was loving to hear that, because it's like, I don't want to be that guy that's like, you know, when it's done for me, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to be that fella that's like chomping at the bit, constantly trying to like win back a win, or, you know, make him feel like, you know, I just want that when the time is right, and I don't want that to be cut off from me because of something like that, you know. The way I want to be able to give 100% at this, because I know the opportunities you have, and I feel this is the right decision, and I don't want it to be cut in half or, you know, shortened because of you know, decisions like that, you know. So
absolutely, and like I think to be honest, I think it's a very smart decision, and you're right. Like the point you made about your last opponent, Leonardo Sinis, you know, all the focus was on, because I remember I was at that weigh-in, and he looked in a bad shape getting on that scale, but I suppose you don't think of, well, one, it's dangerous for him to cut that weight, but two, if someone's cutting so much weight to where they're so dehydrated, then they probably do have a big size advantage. When this fight was announced, though, this caught me by complete surprise. I didn't even notice that you've been dropping down to bantamweight when it was announced, and I was kind of immediately, and I think a good few people were like, you know, this opponent, I thought Ciaran was going to get like a big name now next, and that next step. But coming in here, like, is this almost like a rebuilding phase? Like, it sounds like you're thinking, right, I need to, not a rebuilding, but like you're looking at bantamweight is you can reach your full potential. So is it kind of like almost like a test one now with the pro, and then look to kick on from there?
Yeah, like, and to be honest, like, you know, that wasn't, you know, it came as a surprise to me. Like, to be honest, 7-0, like I said, the longest win streak of an Irish fighter, consecutive wins in Bellator, you know, I think third most in the whole company. I mean, you know, I was thinking I was going to be, the way everyone was talking, like, I thought I was going to be like a 10-2 guy, or you know, and I've been offered 12-2 lads before, like, you know, even before this, you know, so I was like, right, here we go. Like, I was, you know, I was excited, you know what I mean? And again, on paper, then, like, the likes of ourselves, or like other people might look at it and be like, oh, well, you know, whatever, it's 5-3, but like, you know, make no mistake about it. Like, I don't have the undefeated mentality, in the sense I'm undefeated because of my mentality, and that I always come into the fights and I'm 0-0, and I'm not, you know, I'm not unbeaten. You know what I mean? I've been beaten many times, and I've lost and failed many times, and failing every day in the gym. That's why, you know, coming up to it, and I push myself to the limit where, you know, that doesn't happen, you know. So this guy is as dangerous as the last, and I can only beat the man they put in front of me. You know, he's going to be fit, strong. You know, we all know what the Polish are like. He's going to be coming in fit, strong, coming in from my head in Dublin, an opportunity in Bellator. You know, so you know, he could be 30, you know, and all, for all I care. The way I look at it is, he's another man trying to beat me, and I prepare for him just as serious as any other fella, you know.
Ciaran or Caoilte, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, sorry. Have you your opponent, Przemysław Górnik, have you seen much of him yet? Have you looked at the tape? Have you seen much holes in the game that you think you can take advantage of from him?
Yeah, well, I looked at him, what I could on YouTube and everything else, and yeah, like that, I just you know, we'll go from there. And you know, we obviously start your training around the guys that are similar to your opponent, and where you see you can win the fight and stuff, and it's the same as always, you know what I mean? And that's the beauty of being in SBG. Like, you have, you know, so many lads that are there that can have all these different styles, you know. So I've literally been training with, you know, doing my rounds with the Polish Eagle, Pavel, you know. And I mean, he's just a better version of him, bigger, stronger, fitter, a better, more skilled, well-rounded person than him, and fighter than him, sorry. And yeah, getting rounds with him, and you know, and he was obviously a bantamweight. He's moving up the featherweight now, and he's a bit more size than him now. He's a bigger, and you know, I've just taken great confidence now in the training I'm getting in SPG, and obviously, you know, been over here as well, and you know, it's there's nothing really different. You know, the only thing I did learn from the last one was I looked into the guy so much that I had so much fights to look at. I had like 20 fights to look at, whatever it was, the record was, because he was experienced, and I watched loads of them, and I could see the patterns then. But what happened was to me in the fight, and I should have finished that fight, to be honest, because his best thing I'm actually better at, and he was good at, like, what he would do is he'd take the back, he'd get ground and pounded, he'd roll to his back, but lads put the hooks in, and he'd crawl to turtle position, hands and feet, and he'd look for the head, and he'd get catch the head, and he'd get on top then, and he'd peel the hooks off. And when I did that in the fight, I was kind of waiting for that, and you could see at the end of I was like waiting for, and like everyone knows, when I get the back, I get the choke, and I was like, you know. And then in the second and third, I didn't go to the mount. I stayed back in the legs, and I was, you know, it was smart. But, you know, I was like, no, hold on. You know, I'm not trying to focus too much on him anymore, because, you know, like that, as I said, I was nearly waiting for these things to happen, respecting it too much. And like that, I think I could have got the finish, because I feel, and I know I'm better at that position than him, and that's my position, you know what I mean? So his best position I was better at, and I respected it too much, you know. So, look, again, back to your question, I'm not focusing too much on him. I'm just focusing on what I'm going to do in the fight. And, you know, he's reacting to me, and I'm putting myself in positions that when I go here, I know his reactions, and I have my options A, B, or C off it, you know what I mean? And that's the way I train, you know.
Ciarán, obviously you're going back to the Tree Arena to fight in front of your fans and the Irish crowd again. You've fought all but one of your professional fights in the Tree Arena in Dublin, and you know, growing up, a lot of young lads would be eager to go and fight there once. And I guess, you know, you're manifested yourself into the position where you've had the luxury of doing it quite a few times right now, and will continue to do so too. Does that mean a lot to you, still being able to go back there and compete in the Tree Arena?
Yeah, it does, and I feel privileged, really, you know what I mean, because like that, a lot of people, you know, they dream of doing it once, and I'm able to do it 7 times this time, you know. So, and like that, yeah, like, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning when you do mention me, because like I've done this, you know, it's maybe 8th time they're all big arenas, you know what I mean. Like that one in France was the first big event in France, MMA event held in France, and you know, it was in a 10,000 arena. You know, a 10,000 seat arena, but it was only 1,000 people in it because of the pandemic and stuff. But like that, it's big events, and yeah, I've been able to get the wins all those times, and I think that it's definitely worth mentioning, because anyone that did fight there or fought in that type of pressure cooker situation, it's different. Trust me, it's different, and you know, as I said, thank God I was able to get the wins the other times. But definitely, I feel after this one, you know, I feel. I really want to get one abroad, and I know I've been calling for that, but obviously just the way things had worked out and stuff, I really would love one abroad now, and build a bit more of a, would you say, a buzz for the next one then, you know, whereas I get one or two abroad, it's like, oh, Ciarán's fighting in the Tree Arena again, buzzing to go to that. And so I really feel I want that now, you know, and you know, because as we, you know, I don't want to just fight in Ireland all the time, you know what I mean, which is as good as it is. But I want to fight in the States. I want to fight all different places in Europe, and you know, that's where it's at. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of pressure on you as well with that support that comes down from Drogheda each time. I wouldn't like it, on one hand it's brilliant because it's so raucous, but on the other hand, like it's a pain in the arse. People looking for tickets, and you know, it's a bit of a pressure situation.
Yeah, like I need a break from that. You know what I mean? Because it's. The tickets is very, very hard, you know, and don't get me wrong, my girlfriend Loughran, like, she's the best in the world. She does all the tickets out, and like, you know, she seats everyone together, and like Drogheda's, it's the biggest town in Ireland, but it's very small as well, and it's funny as it sounds, but like I can't sit this group of people with this group of people, and do you know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah.
Okay.
different blocks
I get
don't
what you're
get along
saying.
with each other. You know what I mean? So
It's like
yeah,
doing
and
out the
I'm-
table list there for a wedding or something. You can't
Yeah,
have certain
yeah,
people
yeah.
sitting close to one another.
Yeah, you have
That's crazy. I
the-
never even thought of it that way. That's insane.
Oh man, you have there's two sides of draw. There's ours, the real side and the far side, we call it, and they call us the far side. You know what I mean? So like, it's like, you know, so like this group of people can't, and unfortunately I get along with both. You know,
You're bringing everybody together.
Springfield
Yeah,
versus
you know,
Shelbyville.
listen, that's funny because that's an event in itself over the years, and obviously with what's going on and stuff. Like I'm delighted with that because I was able to bring that to. If does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like everyone get.
You're
behind
like the
it and stuff.
peacekeeper of Drogheda, basically.
But yeah, it's, you know, but things like that, like McGregor Lauren does all that, and like people don't realize. People say, I want 10 tickets, and next layer, oh no, only 5 can go. Then I have to find 5 people or one person to sit in that seat, and it's not just like you rock up and sit in your seats. It's a proper an event, you know. So and like that, she does all that, and then I have to meet all the people. I have to meet everybody, chat to them, and I don't just, you don't just, you know, hand the ticket to someone and bounce off. Someone that's essentially paying €200 to go and see a fight with the ticket, and when they put, you know, a drink past them out and a night out and hotels, whatever else, you know what I mean, taking days off work. It used to be on a Friday, and so I'm fully aware of all that, and it's a lot of pressure, it is, but don't get me wrong, to get the win, it's unbelievable, you know. So I do feel it makes the victory all the greater, but I'm really looking forward to, like, because when I went to France that time, it was great, man. It was unbelievable. It just felt like a breeze. Like, just walked in there, fought, you know, went out, had something to eat, and whereas obviously when you're in Ireland, it's such a big event, and you know, all these things, you know. But I'm really looking forward to having that again, you know. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens after this, and obviously have to get the win and hopefully put myself in a good position. So,
Ciarán, when you're thinking about that, like, it's like you're clearly thinking ahead as to what you want in your career. But right now, from our side of the fence, and I know from speaking to other fighters within the organization, that there's just a lot of uncertainty right now with Bellator. Obviously, there's Bellator 299 coming, which you're fighting on, and then Bellator 300 in the States. But after that, there are no other events scheduled as of right now, and nobody seems to truly know what the crack is. So, like, is that difficult for you? Because, like, to take a step back as well, when I look at you, I'm thinking this guy's an undefeated fighter. He's been in amazing fights. You know, whether there's adversity or not, they're incredible fights, and you always find a way to win. You've a huge following, and I'm looking at your teammates now in, like, Lee being on tough, Kiefer, you know, the lads who are you're literally in France with right now. Kiefer's going, making his UFC debut, and I'm thinking, could this open up other opportunities for fighters in Bellator? Depending on what happens, like, is it a weird situation? Like, how do you even kind of process all of this at the moment?
And if anyone doesn't know, it's just for the possible takeover of Bellator from PFL, if is what Andy is speaking about there.
Yeah, sorry I wasn't very clear.
No, I get you. I obviously know what the crack is, but like that, I don't know lads, you're in the same boat as me. I don't know what's going on. All I know is I'm fighting in 4 weeks. I have to get the win there because, you know, I'd rather be 8-0 than 7-1 than be in that position. And the second thing is, I know this is my last fight in my contract. My contract will be up in November this year. So that's all I know, you know. So I'm focusing on this fight. And, you know the way I am. I don't really like looking too far ahead because I have to beat this tough man in front of me. And but yeah, like that, it is a bit mad, like, thinking what is going on, because then, like, we're hearing that they're getting sold, and then you see the likes of, like, Sergio Pettis getting re-signed, and this person getting re-signed, and then you know, we've seen all the things, so we actually don't know what's going on, you know. All I know is, like I said, I have a fight in 4 weeks. This is my last fight in my contract. And that's really it, you know what I mean? And like I said, rather be 8-0 than 7-1, you know, at the end of it to see what happens. But it is a bit mad, you know what I mean? Because, you know, all the lads here with the Pat there going and stuff, and then obviously time will tell with a few weeks coming up for me and stuff, and, you know, obviously for the teammates like Richie Smullen, and, you know, all lads still signed. Pedro's only had to re-sign, and so did Peter, and, you know, we don't know what's going on, you know what I mean? But like I said, we all have fights coming up. Focus on that and then see what happens, but that's as far as I know, really.
I know you're saying you're going to wait and see what happens, and I don't mean to put you in an awkward situation, but you win this fight in November. You're a free agent. You're 8-0. You have a big following, and you have an exciting style inside the cage. I mean, that ticks off a lot of boxes of what the UFC are looking for, with a rumored show coming in there next year as well. Would you be kind of turning your head a little bit at all, or you're just fully focused on what's ahead and what's coming in November?
Look, I'm human, lads. You know what I mean? Of course, I you know, these things, you know, obviously going to cross your mind. But what I've learned in the past is, like, you know, I learned that at amateur with the IMMAFs and stuff. And, you know, you have 5 fights to win to get the gold. You don't think about the gold, you know what I mean? And whether it be re-signing with Bellator, if they're staying, or whatever that is, or if it's PFL, or like that, if it is UFC. And, you know, I think if that, you know, I think people could let that consume them. And I'm just focusing this fight in 4 weeks. You know, as I said, if I win that, then I can start having a chat, which is then, and I can open up. And as well as that, I don't know what's going on with Bellator, you know what I mean? So I haven't a clue, you know. So it is very hard to say. So like that, just keep the head, you know, blinkers on. And although it is a great conversation, but I can't have it this side of the fight, you know.
100%, yeah.
Well, look, that sounds like it's a conversation that we can have. We'll watch you go out there and get the win in a couple of weeks, and we can have you back on and have another conversation, because, I mean, I didn't realize it was the last fight in your contract. That puts you in a very, very interesting and a very great position, to be honest with you. You know, if whatever happens with Bellator, Ciarán Clarke is a hot commodity in Irish MMA. So, look, we really appreciate the time, Ciarán. The last thing I'll ask you, what's it like running through those streets in France? Photographers all over the place. You're with the one of the biggest celebrities in the entire world, and I'd say a lot of people look at you like you've about 4 heads, being like, "What the hell's going on here?"
Yeah, it's a matter. Yeah, like you know, even just been here and that, you know what I mean? Like, just the wealth and stuff that's here, and, you know, like all the cars, and, you know, it's just mad, you know what I mean? It's a far cry from Yellow Bar for any man, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, it's mad. It is. And then, like, you know, we're out in the yacht or whatever, and next later, you know, people's waving, and, you know, or like you could just come out of his company and people are looking at you, and it's mad. It is mad. And then, like, you know, even people like your man at the reception, like, you know, was because I had my gear and all that in the head guard, and, you know, and he was like, "Oh, what are you there on holiday?" "No, I'm just here training." And just, like, you know, like, "You're training?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like, I'm like, I'd be real weird like that. I wouldn't start getting in, like, now. Like, I'd say someone else would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm training with Conor McGregor." And whereas me is like, I wouldn't even want to mention that. I mean, your man would be like, "Yeah, right, man," you know what I mean? And, you know, like, it's surreal for me, never mind to tell someone that, you know. So it's just been a great experience. It's you know, it is like that, as I said. Just sometimes you're just having to remind myself, no way, like this is mad. And it's funny because, like, if you actually scroll back long enough in my Instagram feed, you can see I met Conor in just before his Max Holloway fight. He was supposed to actually fight that guy, I forget his name, the tall guy, but he was supposed to fight him, but it was 14 weeks out, I think, from Max Holloway, and Conor was coming to a nightclub, and the nightclub in Drogheda actually sponsors me now, Earth nightclub, and he was coming to them, and we all lined up to meet Conor, like, knowing that, like, he was just in the UFC, he had just one fight, the UFC debut, and he was to fight then, and his second fight, but, like, he was just, you know, doing nightclub appearances at the time, and, like, there's me in the fight with Conor, and you know, and then you fast forward how many years, nearly 10 years later, and I'm over here training with him, like, you know what I mean? And there you go, you know.
Have you been on the yacht?
Crazy.
Have you been on the yacht?
Oh yeah, we've been on it. Yeah.
I'd say that's mad.
Yeah, like, that's like that. As I said, that's the moment where you're kind of just in the moment. You're just sitting there, and the next day, like, looking around, you're like, this is mad. Like, you know what I mean?
Insane.
You know, it's crazy. You know what I mean?
Something to aspire to. Well, look, from Yellow Batter and Drogheda to the south of France in Cannes, and coming soon to Dublin's 3 Arena again. As always, Ciarán, look, brilliant to speak to you. I hope you have a great time for as long as you're still over there, and safe travels back to Dublin, and all the best with the rest of the camp. We'll speak with you again, and look forward to seeing you compete as always, and we'll chat again soon.
Appreciate you taking the time, Ciarán.
Thanks a million. Cheers.
All right, lads, UFC Paris just around the corner in just a couple of days' time. We have the big UFC debut of Caolan, Loughran, and Rhys McKee returns to the UFC for his second stint. And I'm really, really excited, guys, for the two lads to head out over there. Obviously, let's talk a little bit about Rhys McKee, who's coming in to take on Ange Loosa in the welterweight division. First of all, lads, I'll go to you first, Andy. Much better matchmaking for Rhys McKee this time around than what he had on his first UFC stint. I think that goes without saying.
It'd be very hard if it wasn't. Yeah, no, 100%. This matchmaking makes a lot more sense to me, and I'm delighted. But you know what? It's funny because like Rhys McKee, I feel now is like probably ready for those type of, well, maybe not. I wouldn't be throwing him in there against Hansat right away, but I you know, if you had Rhys McKee versus Alex Morono book tomorrow, I'd fancy putting my money on Rhys McKee, to be honest with you. But
I'd love to see that again. Maybe that'd be one down the line that we could see him in there. I'm sure like Rhys would be interested in that as well. But you spoke with Rhys, Andy, ahead of this fight. Like, what was kind of the main kind of takeaways that you got from speaking with him ahead of this? Obviously, I think the big team with all of it, and Kiefer mentioned it earlier on, like, I mean, getting there is one thing, staying there is the other. And I think that's the focus on a lot of the Irish fighters now that have kind of been signed recently. And I'm sure it's the same at Rhys McKee too.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's exactly what, Rhys McKee was kind of conveying in the interview, is that, look, it's great, so many people coming up to him and saying, Jesus, isn't it brilliant you've got there? You made it to the UFC. And he's kind of thinking, well, I haven't done anything yet. Like, this is a goal, but it's not the goal. The goal is to go in and win there and then get to the top 10 and keep going. And that's a mentality that you need to have, especially coming in, a second time. And I'd say, having been in it there already, it's like, well, yeah, I got to the UFC before, but then, look what happened. It doesn't mean anything until you start getting the wins. So it's a champion's mindset, and it's why he's a champion in an organization currently, or is now vacating his title. But I think Rhys is just purely like, he wants to win, and until the win comes, then everything else is kind of white noise. And look, I think he's got a nice matchup here. Ange Loosa has gone in there. He's fought in some good guys, but fallen short again. He's fought
a couple of different
Kiefer Crosbie's
times,
opponents. He's fought Jack Della Maddalena, fought Munir Lazez, but I think I'd fancy Rhys McKee in this one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to actually bring that question to Caoilte. Obviously, look, we gave Brad Katona his flowers for the way he handled himself once he left the UFC, and I think the same has to be said for Rhys McKee as well. He didn't lick wounds for too long, got right back on the horse, picked up a couple of good wins, and obviously the Cage Warriors title, and defended that title as well. Coming in here against Ange Loosa, a good, well-rounded fighter, because got good power, is strong, but I feel the striking advantage here, having looked at both guys, would definitely go with Rhys McKee. And if he can kind of implement his game plan, I would be very confident in a Rhys McKee win here against a guy like Ange Loosa. How would you feel about it, Caoilte?
I feel very similar. I can't look past Rhys McKee the way he has been in recent fights. He's just been sensational, leveling up on every single occasion. He's looked fantastic. His striking's been crisp. Overall, he's just been brilliant. And he's looked UFC ready for about 2 fights now, and he's even an underdog in this. And I think I'd feel silly if I put my money on anyone except Rhys McKee in this one. I feel like he's more than ready. If he gets that striking off, he could even get a finish in this one, to be honest.
Absolutely. So on the same card, and a person who's going to get the main card treatment on Paris is Caolan Loughran, as he steps in there to take on Yanis Gimori. Obviously, I had a chat with Caolan, who's very confident as always heading into this one, and looking at this matchup too with Yanis Gimori. Yanis is decent enough on the feet, but I feel Caolan has the style and the pressure that's going to make it a difficult night for Gimori here. And obviously very open and honest, and never shy about saying how confident he is going in there. And that confidence is contagious as well. I would feel that he would be have to kind of get maybe outside of octagon jitters. I can't see him not going in there and performing. And even at that, I think he's just a rock solid mentality, Caoilte, in his abilities to go in there and assert his dominance and his pressure. And, you know, I feel with Rhys, and I would say the same about Caolan too, we're getting buckled up here for quite an exciting journey here with both of these guys, and especially Caolan. Obviously, Rhys is a little bit more laid back and a little bit more kind of keeps his confidence to himself, a quiet confidence, whereas Caolan is a out there confidence, and both of those mentalities work. But Caolan is going to tell us, Caolan is going to say what he's going to do in these fights, and then he's going to call out the entire UFC roster after it. And I'm here for that. I'm here for that big time, and I'm very excited to see him go in here against Yanis Gamori on Saturday night, which will open up the main card too.
It will, and the one thing with Caolan is the world hasn't realized the kind of the shit talk from Caolan Loughran yet. And once you get to the UFC, all the Twitter fans and the kind of general MMA fans start picking up on it. And when they hear him, even in the pre-fight press conferences and everything, he'll get their attention. If they like him, if they love him, if they hate him, one or the other, they're still going to be all in for him, because he's got that personality, that mindset, that loudmouth in a sense at times as well, and that just brings you into a fight. And he's got the talent to back it up, and that's the main thing, really, isn't it? Gets in there and he does exactly what he tells us every time. And this is by no means an easy fight. It's a very difficult debut, but it's one that I would feel Caolan could shine in at the same time, because every fight we've seen him now, he's leveling up bit by bit. He's telling us how good he is, and then he's backing it up. And I feel like it could be one of those nights once again.
Absolutely, it could. And I'm sure you feel the same, Andy. It could be like, you know, with Rhys and his new kind of stage and his second coming to the UFC, and with Caolan as well, it's kind of like there are hidden secrets. It was the same with Ian Garry as well, is that we know how good these guys are. It's just now they have to showcase it to the world. And the two, with Rhys, and obviously we're talking about Caolan now is his chance to show the world. And look, you talk a good game, like we said with Ian Garry, but when you can go in there and back it up makes it all that sweeter as well. And we're in for a similar trajectory with Caolan here, I feel.
Yeah, and like they're, as you have mentioned, like they're at kind of, they're very different in coming in here, because Rhys probably has to do a little bit more to get the hype, because he's been in there before and he's taken some losses, where Caolan's coming in here as this undefeated fighter who's brash. He's a pest. He's an absolute pest, a lovable pest. But like, you know, you see him online and he's tagging his opponent, being like, I saw Cage Warriors put up a video of him, one of his finishes, and he's there tagging Yanis Gamori, being like, this is your fate. Like, just going at him, but he's backing it up, and I really like this matchup too. I really, really do. Like, when I look at Yanis Gamori, he can be a little bit stationary with his footwork, I find. And I think Caolan's got the power to put it on him and look for a knockout, but also I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out there, shoots a double leg, puts him on his arse, and lands some ferocious ground and pound from there. So this is going to be a fun one, and yeah, strap yourselves in, everyone, because Caolan Loughran is he's going to be fun.
McKee in Paris and the Don also in Paris after taking over Rome. That takes place obviously this coming Saturday. Whenever you're listening to this, it'll be Saturday, September the 2nd. Both of those guys going in, really looking forward to seeing that, and obviously we'll break it down in detail after the fight happens on the next episode of the Auld Triangle. On the same night, we have a debut and a professional debut for Owen Sheridan, who comes in and takes on Joey Dawkin at Golden Tickets Fight Promotions at welterweight. That's on Saturday, September the 2nd as well. The very following week, a couple of quick housekeeping feel free, guys, to come in here. I'll just rattle through a few of these. Dom Norcus from Team KF comes in on September the 9th. That's the same day as Kiefer makes his UFC debut as well at Battle Arena.
Hot prospect.
Yeah, top prospect coming in there. He takes on David Kalsa at Battle Arena. Alan Philpott is back in action at Eternal 78 against Sean Etchell. That's also on September 9th. So
another young hot prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 And that kind of rounds us up over the next couple of weeks of fights coming up. In a little bit more down the line, we do have obviously the PFL fights coming up at the end of September, which we'll talk about a little bit in a couple of more episodes time. But announcement this week, Andy, you broke the news, a big fight that you broke this week too. Leah McCourt, the curse is back against Sarah McMahon at Bellator 300. She will go stateside to take on former UFC title contender Sarah McMahon. And this is a huge fight. And I really like this fight for Leah. Really perfect stylistic matchup for her with the developments that she's shown in recent fights as well, to come in here and take on a really legit opponent in Sarah McMahon.
Yeah, from big fight to big fight after facing Kat Zingano, now taking on and a former Olympic silver medalist, I believe it was, in Sarah McMahon. So yeah, look, massive fight. And I put it out there, and Chris, the champion Chris Cyborg, immediately kind of responded being like, oh, this is great to see another featherweight fight in case her one doesn't come to fruition, so that maybe one of them would go and fight for the title. That fight against Kat Zingano was razor close, and if you zig when you had it zagged, and a bit of debate over who won, but I think like what Leah showed that night is that was the best performance of her career to date in the biggest fight of her career to date. So to be going in here now, training full time, I believe, at a Next Gen in Liverpool. So it'll be interesting to see how she does, because if she beats Sarah McMahon, then she should be calling for that title shot. Obviously, we've two Irish featherweights who are well within their rights to be calling for title shots. But yeah,
absolutely. Sinead will be doing exactly the same at 299 if she goes in against Sarah Collins and gets the win. And I mean, even though Sarah Collins is only, I think, 4-0 right now, she's a really tricky opponent too. But I think if the best Sinead Kavanagh, in my opinion, goes in there and beats the Sarah Collins that we've seen in her last fight. But it's like, the team of this podcast is how lucky are we that we're in a position to talk about this, and all these athletes are making waves in the UFC and making waves in the PFL and Bellator as well. And we have two Irish women at the very top of the 145-pound division in women's mixed martial arts in the world right now. So credit to Sinead, credit to Leah. Really excited to see them both throw down in the next couple of weeks. Caoilte, moving over to Cage Warriors, they announced a couple of fighters coming on for shows on Cage Warriors 160, and obviously the Dublin one later on in October. We have fights announced for Adam Shelley, Adam Shelley will take on Matthew Calamari at Manchester Cage Warriors 160 on Friday 29th of September. James Sheehan, Jimbo Slice, is back. He's taken on Olai Santalali on the Dublin card, along with Ger Harris, who was announced to take on Ryan Hewitt. Paddy McCurry is coming in to take on Samir Kaddi. Solomon Simon also announced for the Dublin card too. Plenty to get excited there, Caoilte, about those fights.
Plenty, yeah. I love the Shelley and Camilleri fight. I think that's a very good one. Camilleri, very, very good grappler. I actually think he's trained in Ireland before as well. He's from Malta originally, and I think he's trained out of Next Gen now, but very good grappler. I think he'll be a great test for Adam Shelley, which could be a bit of a clash of styles there, but sometimes they make for some of the greatest fights as well. James Sheehan versus Ali Santalahati is another cracker of fight. Ollie's he's fun to watch, but it'll be a good test for James as well. It could really shoot him up the rankings in Cage Warriors. But I have to give a big shout out to Waterford's own Solomon Simon. Always great to see the counties getting represented on Cage Warriors. So they're doing the rounds now. The counties are Cage Warriors, and now we got a Waterford man in there again. So love it.
100%. Andy, I'm excited to see Paddy McCurry. Obviously, you spoke with him ahead of the last fight. He was being on with us too. Real good prospect. And, with eyes on everything that's happening right now, I think a good rest of this year and a good year after in 2024 for Paddy McCurry if things go his way. I would expect big things for Paddy. And great to see Ger Harris also on the card. I believe just the one fight deal. Obviously, he's with Showtime Promotions as well and kind of going over and back. But great job by Cage Warriors to secure Ger Harris for this card, and I'll be excited to see him fight in the yellow gloves as well, as I'm sure that you will be too.
I absolutely will be. And yeah, I agree with your sentiments around Paddy McCurry. I see he's overtraining in Thailand at the moment, and geez, that flying knee that he had in the last Dublin card was something to behold. And yeah, I the way he came in against James Webb in his debut, like he's a guy who I think could break out. Ger, good to see him on this card. I think Ger will smoke this opponent, to be honest with you. I had a look. I saw he has a loss to I think he has a loss to, what's your man's name?
Rhys Street.
Rhys Street. So I would, but look, if you've got Ger Harris on a 1-fight deal, you're showcasing him. So I think get in there. I think Ger Harris will put on a show. Anthony Pettis is bigging him up and saying he's going to be one of the next big things as well, obviously, in his fight promotion. But look, I think this card overall, there's a lot of guys like Ryan Shelley. I really think if he can put on a big performance here now next month, he could easily be putting himself in the mix once again. You know, couple more wins, and he could be fighting for a title or who knows what's up. And there's a lot of them. You know, James Sheen. You know, there's guys coming off losses. There's guys coming off wins. Solomon Simon, he looked brilliant in Dublin as well. So, but yeah, I think you're right though about Paddy McCarry. He's really someone who could have a breakout year, or breakout next. Whatever, 6 months,
Absolutely.
9 months.
And I'm looking at like what talent is in there in the UFC middleweight division, and a couple of more fights, a bit more experience. Paddy McCarry inserts himself right in the mix there. I really don't have any doubts about it, and it's great to see. And that's it, lads. From Cage Warriors to Combatje to Bellator to PFL to the UFC. We covered it all. The Irish invasion is well and truly in place, and things are getting spicy, and it's great to be here. It's great to be able to talk about it, and that's what we will continue to do.
It's a great time to have an Irish MMA podcast.
It's not bad at all. It ain't bad at all. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, give us a follow and a rating on Spotify, on SoundCloud, on iTunes, and pass along, share the good news. With this new injection of Irish talent coming across all of these promotions, there might be more of a keen focus on Irish mixed martial arts. So if you have any new fans that are looking to try and get in and on the scene, we cover it all, from the big shows to the small shows. As well, obviously, we'll cover Akumia, the next podcast that was going down as we're recording. Great to see, Irish MMA doing well on the domestic kind of a scene, and also internationally too. So it's great to be here with the lads to talk about it every second week or so. Thanks so much for Kiefer Crosbie and Ciarán Clarke for giving us the time to speak with them today. And we'll catch you all the next time. Caoilte, see you out.
Garry míle maith agam agus slán go fóill.